Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. I did a podcast today on ADHD and focus and brain fog. So today we're going to dive in and give you a little summary version of the top 5 reasons why you have brain fog and you can't pay attention. We'll do a pinned comment for the full-length podcast below. All right, so let's dive in. Before we do, smash that like button, give me a thumbs up, hit the bell for notifications, and I'm answering a lot of the comments, so make sure you put a comment down there as well. So what's the number one reason? Well, we'll go over 5, but when you have brain fog, what are the big driving, contributing factors upstream? What's happening root cause, physiological level that's driving that? What's happening under the hood? So we'll go into that. So first off, when we see brain fog, the first thing I look at is going to be inflammation in the brain. Typically, if we activate inflammation, whether it's through food allergens, gut bacteria dysbiosis, toxins in the environment, poor sleep, poor stress, because that's really important for healing, turning over neurotransmitters, becoming anabolic and building up that tissue again. If we don't have good balance, our brain's going to suffer from inflammation. When we do that, we're going to activate a lot of our microglial cells, which are the immune cells in the brain. They help gobble up junk and inflammation. And if those are chronically activated, the microglial cells, again, they're our immune cells in our brain, but if they're chronically activated, it's going to cause us to feel foggy. And so when we look at the root cause, inflammation is the root cause. Now, the different vectors, because inflammation is a general byproduct of a lot of different, more specific pathways. So we'll go into the more specific pathways, but that microglial cell activation is a big one. And we have to look at getting the inflammation down. Now, big thing out of the gate is going to be food, right? This is not a surprising fact, but if you're eating a lot of processed grains, processed fatty acids, processed refined omega-6 seed oils, flour, sugar, anything with additives, dyes, preservative, artificial sweeteners, this is potentially could be a problem and could cause maybe leaky brain, leaky gut, anything that's inflammation on the brain. We have a leaky gut barrier, right? It's called our enterocytes. They line our small intestine. Think of this as our gut junction here, right? And when we have inflammation, gluten and dairy and casein are the big ones, but endotoxin, bacterial overgrowth, these tight junctions start to open up and undigested particulate can move its way into the bloodstream. Now, what's actually in the gut is actually considered outside of the body. So it's in the gut, goes into the microvilli, into the bloodstream. So it's going from outside the gut to in the gut as it gets absorbed. And when those tight junctions are more open, what's in the gut that's technically outside of the body can move its way into the bloodstream, and that can create a problem. So inflammation in the gut barrier can also create inflammation in the blood-brain barrier. That's going to be your astrocytes. So when your astrocytes become inflamed, you can also have leaky brain, and particulate that shouldn't be able to get into your brain now can. And so now you have more inflammation being driven by a poor shield. It's like your front door being open, anyone can just walk in. And so particulate toxins that normally wouldn't get exposure now have increased exposure, which means increased brain fog, increased mood issues, depression, anxiety. And a lot of the new pipeline drugs for mood issues are actually working on inflammation in the brain. Now, probably not getting to the root cause of why that's there. Just like they had a good goal of coming out with COX-2 inhibitors in the early 2000s called Vioxx that killed 60,000 people. So you want to look at the underlying cause, and you don't want to go to a drug to block one pathway because then you can have side effects that come down the road. We want to get to the actual root cause of why that inflammation is there, not block some enzymatic pathway downstream that could have side effects. So we talk about the blood. We talk about the leaky gut or the gut permeability, essentially the gut barrier from our outside of the gut into our bloodstream, right? This is the gut barrier system. And we have the brain barrier system. Those are going to be our astrocytes. So we have our big foods. We have gluten, we have dairy, we have processed grains, we have flours. These are all going to be big things out of the gates. We have blood sugar instability. Our blood sugar going up and down like this can create lots of hormonal stress. We can surge insulin. Surges in insulin can create androgens in women. And in men, it can actually create increase in estrogen. So if we're surging testosterone in women, surging estrogen in guys, that can be a problem. We want to keep our hormones pretty even keel throughout the day in regards to our blood sugar. Now, of course, our cortisol rhythm is starting up and then going down throughout the day. But if we're surging our blood sugar around, this cortisol rhythm that starts up and goes down could still go up and down as well, and that could cause mood issues. Cortisol is also very anti-inflammatory, It's also catabolic. And if we create too much cortisol, that can activate or hit parts of the limbic system that can impact memory and focus as well. So if we surge cortisol, because we're surging our blood sugar or we're surging inflammation, cortisol can have an impact on the hippocampal region of the brain and impact memory and mood as well. So that's definitely a possibility. So we talked about food and food allergens and inflammation in food. We're talking about blood sugar fluctuations. Gut microbiome is a big one, right? If you look at the big things that open up that gut barrier, lipopolysaccharides and dysbiotic bacteria are going to be a big thing that impact that gut barrier. Now, you could have a lot of bacteria already there or some bacteria there, and you're feeding it through a lot of the processed carbs in foods that could cause it to grow. You could have antibiotic exposure. That antibiotic is knocking down a lot of the weak bacteria, creating superbugs and creating this rebound bacterial overgrowth. That's definitely a possibility. It could be from lack of probiotic rich foods, right? Fermented foods, you're not getting that. Most people don't in today's diet, in today's, in general, with people in their diet, and they're not getting fermented food or they're not taking probiotics supplementally to fill in that gap. That's definitely a possibility. And we could also have fungal overgrowth too, because when we have antibiotic exposure or dysbiotic bacteria, we can also get this rebound candida fungal overgrowth because candida also likes processed carbs and sweets as well. And so we could easily have this fungal overgrowth too. Can't forget that. And candida does produce acetaldehyde. And acetaldehyde is a toxin. It's going to be a stressor on the liver, and it can create brain fog. There's a thing also known as auto brewery syndrome. You can look it up, auto brewery syndrome. People will eat a bunch of sugar or carbohydrate, and you'll actually have a brewery in their gut fermenting alcohol. And these people will actually come back. They'll test positive on a breathalyzer test, positive for alcohol, even though they haven't drank any. Their stomach is just fermenting it. All this acetaldehyde and from all the processed carbohydrates in their diet, they're becoming a brewery in their gut. And so they can produce lots of candida and fungus, and that produces a lot of acetaldehyde. And of course, we all know how you feel when you get drunk. You're going to feel a little bit, dazed, confused, lightheaded, that kind of buzz feeling. Well, that's not going to be helpful if you're trying to be cognitively focused and have good train of thought. So we have that there out of the way there. And then also, I would just say good nutrition. Like nutrition is really important, like getting nutrients like magnesium, selenium, zinc, good glutathione. We need good amino acids. If we can't break down our amino acids like N-acetylcysteine, people talk about glutathione to help with brain detoxification. Well, guess what? Glutathione cannot cross the blood-brain barrier. So you can take all the liposomal, S-acetyl, reduced glutathione all day. You actually need the precursor amino acids to cross that blood-brain barrier, and then they can convert in the brain. So things like N-acetylcysteine, well, if you're not eating it because you're not consuming good cruciferous vegetables or not eating good animal proteins, and if your stomach acid's low, then we may not get that cysteine in, and that may not be able to cross the blood-brain barrier. So you could say, I'm taking glutathione from my functional medicine doc. Okay, that's good. It's going to help your body, but it's not going to cross the blood-brain barrier. So we always want to make sure we're getting some N-acetylcysteine as well for good brain inflammation detoxification. There's always going to be some toxicity out there, whether it's heavy metals from your fillings, heavy metals out in the environment, whether you have pipes that are old and have lead in there, whether it's microplastics, whether it's Roundup or different pesticides or organochlorines in the environment, whether it's homeopathic levels in the water supply because people's water filtration systems don't filter these things out, or public sanitation doesn't filter them out. These are all potential toxins. So we want to make sure our water's clean. We want to make sure we have at least some simple nutrients on board to help cross that blood-brain barrier to help our body be able to detoxify. And again, don't forget, the solution to pollution is dilution. So the more you can dilute what's going on in your body through good, high-quality hydration with electrolytes, that's going to make any toxin in your system less toxic. So hope it helps for you guys. Again, the big things out of the gate are going to be, in general, gut-brain barrier is going to be a big one. Food, processed carbohydrates, a lot of the junky acellular carbs, the gluten, the dairy is going to be a big one. We're going to have issues with gut and candida and fungal overgrowth. We're going to have issues with nutrients, right? Making sure we have good nutrition on board to help with the brain inflammation and brain detoxification. And then, of course, we want to make sure we're looking at our hormones. Surging of insulin, surging of cortisol, surging of testosterone can throw things off significantly. So we'll put that link down below for the full-on podcast where you guys can look and get a different perspective. I went over some different topics today, but I have a longer podcast that will expand on some of these topics. So if you guys enjoyed today's video, please let me know. Put it in the comments down below. Give me a like, give me a share, hit that bell for notifications. And if you want to dive in, if you need more functional medicine support or you want to help go specifically into some challenges that you have, there'll be a link down below where you can reach out to my staff and team. We're happy to help you out. We work with patients worldwide. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, let me know. Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye, y'all.